the September 2018 issue of Science of Mind magazine. Ideals really control the world, for the world acts the way it thinks. But what is an ideal? An ideal is a mental state. For instance, Jesus had the idea that God is right where you are, that there is a law of good available to you wherever you may be. It was this idea that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, here and now, and may be entered into, that made him different from others. His ideals were of love, of our unity with God. What if we took the attitude that the mind of God that contains all ideals isn't some faraway dream, but a present reality? Let us now use the power of our word to transform our minds and thus our lives. Say with me, as I pray, I look beyond the appearance and expand my consciousness to feel, to realize the allness and perfection of spirit, which is closer to me than my own breath. This feeling of oneness or allness is the creative power that is now turning my words into a bright new experience. And so it is.
I have some actual announcements in church bulletins. Pastor is on vacation. Massages can be given to the church secretary. Bertha Belch, a missionary from Africa, will be speaking tonight at Calvary Methodist. Come here, Bertha Belch, all the way from Africa. Okay. I know I'm not supposed to laugh at my own jokes. I've been told this, but I can't. Okay. Attending, you will hear an excellent speaker and heave a healthy lunch. This evening at 7 p.m. in the park across from the church. Bring a blanket and come be prepared to sin. They dropped the G. The church will host an evening of fine dining, superb entertainment, and gracious hostility. The pastor would appreciate it if the ladies of the congregation would lend him their electric girdles for the pancake breakfast on Sunday morning. Okay. So, we love to laugh, don't we? I mean, it's actually the activity of spirit moving in us, through us, and as us. And it feels good. And isn't that what the great spiritual masters intended? Was to have us tap into those beautiful feelings of love, peace, joy, harmony, grace, conviction, faith, trust, all of those beautiful feelings that make life so worth living. So this entire month, we're focused on spiritual mind treatment, which is our form of prayer. It's affirmative prayer. The feeling, we're focused on the feeling nature of it. And so the topic today, which is divine ideas, you'd say, well, what does that have to do with feeling? Because divine ideas lift us. They feel good. We know it's a divine idea when it feels good. Just like we were listening to the humor that we were listening to, we know that somehow the divine, the humor of the divine, the joy of the divine was working through those individuals to produce this so that we don't take ourselves so seriously. There's a saying that says angels fly high because they take themselves lightly, right? So it's important that when we come here, that we don't come here to be all serious all the time, but to realize that we are here to allow ourselves to be lifted on high, to experience those beautiful feelings of the Spirit that we've been looking for. Otherwise, why come? Why come? So, so um, this idea of ideas, of divine ideas, where do they originate? I think all of you probably know this already, but where do they originate? So let's go back to ultimate reality. If all there is one source, one presence, one power, one infinite being, we can call it the presence of God or Great Spirit, that this presence must be our presence. And this presence, we say, is love, is peace, is joy, is intelligence, is wisdom, is order. All of those attributes of the all that is, therefore, are our attributes. So our essential nature, the essence underneath the doom and gloom that we sometimes feel, is peace, joy, and love. All of those good feelings. So what are we here doing? We're here actually stripping away all of the ideas that prevent us from experiencing that essential nature of who we are. We're letting that go. We're it's like taking off old garments. We're releasing ourselves from that. So every time then that we conceive a new idea that lifts us, it is, think of it this way, it is God expressing through us and as us. That's why we call it divine ideas or divine inspiration. So it's God expressing through us as the latest song, as the latest novel, as the latest work of art. And actually, we have a beautiful work of art, the latest work of art by our aesthetics team, which is absolutely beautiful. An infinity symbol with all of the symbols of various spiritual traditions, reminding us of our oneness and yet our infinite variety. A beautiful symbol, I believe, that they created that got birthed out of a visioning process in the board of trustees. That's how it started. Well, it started in the mind of God, but it came through one of our board of trustees members who's sitting here right now, right? Julie, yeah? That came through Julie during our visioning. And it was part of planning for the 8th anniversary. So there's the number 8. And so she saw a number 8, and she also saw an infinity sign, which is a number 8 on its side. Our aesthetics team took the idea, that beautiful divine idea, and Lisa and her team, Leslie and Kristen, uh, and Dan, yeah, all worked together to put that beautiful symbol together for us, for our not only our enjoyment, for our contemplation of the diversity and the beauty of divine creation in us, through us, and as us, and yet our oneness, which is beautiful. So let's kind of give a round of applause to Lisa and Leslie and Kristen and Dan. So beautiful. Such a great example. Thank you for giving me a perfect example of a divine idea made manifest. And also our vehicle who caught it the first time, Julie. Beautiful. So in the book of John, it talks about Jesus saying, even the things that I do or I think, we'll think of them as ideas, even greater things you shall do. He's reminding us of our divine origin, just like he is. And then we are always living on the leading edge of thought. That's part of humanity, living on the leading edge of thought. So how then do we make ourselves available to these rich ideas. And one hint was what we were doing in our Board of Trustees gathering when we first caught the idea. Visioning, spiritual practice. Visioning is a part of spiritual practice. And the beauty of visioning is actually designed for the purpose of catching new ideas from the mind of the infinite. It's beautifully, beautifully designed for that. Because it's a wonderful, what I realized at some point was it's a wonderful combination of several spiritual practices. There's an intention. You set an intention of what it is that you choose to experience during that visioning process. And it's really helpful to have an intention that you just accept whatever comes through as good and very good. And then you spend time in the silence, just listening deeply, just for a period of time, taking that deep dive. So it has meditation as part of it, and then posing questions. What is the divine highest idea of our 8th anniversary? That's what it was for us at that point in time. And then again, we dive back into the silence and we listen deeply. And sometimes we sit there for a while because maybe it seems like nothing's coming through. But what I found is if I just start writing, it starts pouring through me, even if it's not like in the surface of my mind. And then after, so it's contemplative meditation, asking a question and contemplating and allowing the answer to arise. And isn't it amazing how ideas arise out of nowhere? Where do they come from? I mean, have you ever thought about that? How that's like, pop, there it is. There's the new idea. I hadn't been planning to think that idea. It just showed up. It's such a cool thing when you think about it. Out of the blue, these ideas just pop into our minds. And when we use our daily spiritual practices, when we commit to a ritual of daily spiritual practice, what we do is we open ourselves to these higher ideas. And of course, the higher ideas, the divine ideas, we're opening ourselves to joy, peace, and love, all of those wonderful feelings. So again, with visioning, then after you've done the intention, the meditation, the contemplation of those ideas, what must I become and what must I release as well in order to be a vehicle of the vision? So what's the inner work of the belief structure for me to dismantle, and what is it that I am to really attune to, with what qualities? Then there is the prayer work, spiritual mind treatment. And the prayer work is around not the vision itself. We know the vision's already perfect in the mind of God. The prayer work is around subtracting what is in the way within us, in our belief structure, from allowing that new idea to come into form. So isn't it beautiful how all of that flows with the visioning process? So spiritual practice and so dedicated time to sitting in the silence, so important. There was another beautiful example of how to receive guidance, to receive new ideas that we used in our metaphysical Bible class last Thursday night. And I want to share mine because it speaks so much to what I'm talking about right now in this moment. We were to get clarity on a how-to question related to our lives, whatever we wanted to work on, whatever we considered to be a challenge in the moment. So my how-to is I simply wanted to know how to expand my living from a place of the kingdom of heaven consciousness. And it said, just pick a scene, pick a desert scene or an ocean or whatever you wanted, a forest. I chose the ocean. So then I went into meditation and I saw myself diving into the ocean, and the surface was really, really murky, really murky. I couldn't see it, but I kept diving, and then it was really dark. It was really, really dark. And then I kept diving, diving more and more. And all of a sudden, these little lantern fish showed up, the little fish with the little lanterns. And it cast illumination on what was going on the surface of the ocean. And in the surface of the ocean, there were all these lava tubes that were bubbling up, new life and new energy out of the surface of the bottom of the ocean. And then I noticed, oh, I was in a little submarine, my little personal submarine. I was totally safe, even in the midst of all of this. And I looked around, and there were other people in their submarines. It could have been you. And we're waving at each other. So see how the mind, it speaks in symbol. This deep subconscious mind, the universal mind, we could say, speaks in the most beautiful symbols. But I trust you caught all the symbols of the new bubbling up, the new ideas, the divine ideas in the mind of God, all there ready for me. The little lantern, the light of consciousness, the light of awareness of the little lantern fish, right? The surface mind, the murky surfaced mind, right, with all the monkey mind, and then diving deep, and it seemed really dark. And sometimes we avoid meditation, I'm guessing, because sitting in the silence and going deep, and how can that possibly be beneficial, particularly when we first start off? And it can seem a little scary. So that's why it was so cool. It had the little submarine. I was perfectly safe. And then the light of illumination as the new ideas start bubbling up to the surface. Like, wow, isn't spirit creative in getting across to me the importance of spending more time in the silence? And then it's perfect for this Sunday message as well too. It's just a great reminder of the power of spiritual practice. So another way, so spiritual mind treatment. I want to do a little bit more on that one because we talked about what I must release and what I must embrace. And in that particular situation, I must release the busyness of my day and embrace the silence. And what I came across is this beautiful, it's a treatment in and of itself by Thomas Troward, a great New Thought author. And this is what he says: my mind is a center of divine operation, always for expansion and fuller expression. And this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in past experience, though proceeding out of it in an orderly sequence of growth. This is talking, do you see how this is talking about our true nature? And this is his way of saying, let's claim this truth, that we are always available to new divine ideas, and it's always about advancement. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner in me. Consequently, in my own special world, in which I am the center, it moves forward as divine ideas. I put that in there myself. It moves forward as divine ideas to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before. Awesome, isn't it? It's beautiful. Just a great reminder of this amazing mind that we have, that is a part of the universal mind and has available to us amazing ideas. That's a great example of an affirmative prayer or a spiritual mind treatment. It's knowing the truth that sets us free. This is about liberation. So when we bring a question or we bring a situation into contemplative prayer in this way and ask for the perfect solution, it is such a joy to witness and watch a new solution materialize out of nowhere, out of nowhere. We can also make ourselves available to divine ideas by reading spiritual books. Yeah? And it's a great spiritual practice. It's actually a spiritual practice. So we have a couple of classes coming up. We have spiritual growth circles available. There are a lot of opportunities available in this community to study together and to deepen into these ideas. And I invite you to join in if you haven't already. Okay, the other way to make ourselves available is to align with other like-minded souls. And in this particular situation, I'm talking not only just spiritual community, but prayer partnership. Prayer partnership. And there's a beautiful article on prayer partnership if you want to go for it all out. It was in the newsletter this week. So I invite you to read it. Because when we have a prayer partner, somebody who is holding us accountable, as well as knowing our truth, we can progress much more quickly. So then how do we know? Okay, so let's say we've got a new idea. We've been doing these practices, new ideas are starting to pop up. So how do we know when it is a divine idea and not just something made up by the conditioned mind? How do we know that? Well, how it feels. There we go. It's back to feeling. How does it feel? Mary Morrissey says, ask yourself the question, does it give me life? Does it give me life? Does it have the wow factor to it? So when you get a divine idea, there's a like, wow, that would really be cool. I mean, think about this when they were thinking about putting that together. That I'm sure there was a wow factor, right, Lisa? Yeah. And it turned out to be wow. It's a demonstration of wow. So that's how we know it's a divine idea. And so then after that, so we've made ourselves available by doing our spiritual practice. The ideas are now flowing. We have determined that something is a divine idea because it has a wow factor. Okay, so what do we do next? Act. Yes, who said that? Brilliant. We act, we take action. Exactly. So when we think of this beautiful symbol, I am sure there were a lot of hours of action put into creating that symbol just for us. And how cool is that? Do you feel the love? Do you feel the incredible love that went into that? An act of love, action, inspired action creates beautiful results. There's another beautiful divine idea that this is actually part of that has been planted on a global level by the Parliament of World's Religions. It's the concept of diversity inclusion. And I've spoken of it a bit, and I've written about it in the newsletter a couple of times, and it's also in a permanent article in our newsletter, but that is on the season of interfaith intercultural celebration. And so many of the different ways that this happens is that the Parliament of World's Religions is having a whole conference, November 1st through 7th, on the concept of diversity inclusion. All of these, just think of 10,000 plus people from all over the planet, different religions being permeated with this divine idea of diversity inclusion, with the whole purpose of really immersing ourselves in and embodying what it means to live in oneness. It means embracing, not just tolerating, it means embracing our differences, embracing our diversity is something that's good and very good. Yeah? Yes. And what's the feeling when you think about that? I feel joy. Right? Celebration, joy. Our Association for Global New Thought, therefore, their part is interfaith, intercultural celebration. That's their way of embodying this divine idea. The Centers for Spiritual Living that we're part of are doing free Zoom conferences for anybody who wants to take them on diversity inclusion, and they're really good. I participated in 2 of them. Um, uh, I talked about our newsletter. I talked about our beautiful infinity sign. Um, we have a surprise that's coming up that's also part of that idea of diversity inclusion that's covered up in the back. That'll be revealed on September 23rd. And we also have Candace, who is offering she's offering talks on various spiritual traditions. And I haven't forgotten you, Candace, on different spiritual traditions. And it's another way of us again celebrating, not just tolerating or trying to understand, but celebrating our differences. And how beautiful is that? So, diversity, inclusion, an idea in the mind of God that is now, people have been taking action on it. And the result means that more and more and more of humanity are embracing and embodying this beautiful idea of diversity and how awesome it is. Okay, so the whole concept then is to make ourselves available. Spiritual practice. It's how we allow divine ideas to come to the surface. And then what do we do next? We know it's a divine idea when it feels good, when it has the wow factor. And then we act. We act on it. We offer it. We get the idea out there. We listen for inspired action. And when we do that, we are truly living in the kingdom of heaven. And so it is. Candace, would you go ahead and do yours now?